Hello sir, hello classmates. So yung gagawin po natin is yung midterm number 4. So first, search natin yung Persipute and then search the lab SQL databases. So ito na po yung lab developing SQL databases. So ito po yung midterm number 4, implicit and explicit transactions. Click start. Click next on the lab SQL 01. Exercise 1. Analyzing implicit transaction and transact SQL statements. A transaction refers to a sequence of operations on a database. These operations form a single unit and run in logical order, either manually or automatically. The transactions as a whole unit can either be executed successfully or may fail for certain reasons. SQL Server supports two types of transaction mode. 1. Implicit transaction. 2. Explicit transaction. An implicit transaction refers to the method in which the SQL Server database engine automatically starts a new transaction and ends it only when commit or rollback commands are specified in the statement. Thus, when the earlier transaction is committed or rolled back, the SQL Server database engine starts a new transaction by default. This results in creating a series of transactions implicitly and continues to do so until the implicit transaction mode option is disabled. In this exercise, we learn to understand the execution of transact SQL statements when implicit transaction mode is turned on. Task 1. Monitor an implicit transaction. In this task, we will check the effect of enabling the implicit transaction mode when executing transact SQL statements. Step 1. Ensure you have powered on the required devices and connect to Plab SQL 01. Step 2. From the Plab SQL 01 desktop, click Start and click Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. The Connect to Server dialog box appears. From the server type, drop-down list, click Databases Engine and server name text box type Plab SQL 01, click Connect. Hanapin mo yung Microsoft SQL Server 2016 and Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Click Connect. Step 3. The SQL Server Management Studio windows open. An Object Explorer, click plus sign to expand the Databases folder. Step 4. To select a database from the list of databases, click AdventureWorks DW 2016 CTP3. To create a new query from the Query ribbon, click New Query. Step 5. The New Query pane opens. Step 6. Turn on the implicit transactions mode in the SQL Server database engine. To enable the implicit transactions mode, type the following query in the New Query pane. Copy. And paste. Step 7. To run the query, click Execute or press F5. Step 8. Create a new table named product_tmp and add its contents from the dim product table and the AdventureWorks DW 2016 CTP3 database. To perform this, type the following query below the previous query in the same query pane. To run the query that you type, Select it and click execute or press F5. Step 9. Roll back the transaction to erase all data modification made from the start of the transaction. To perform this, type the following command below the query that you type and step 8 in the same query pane. Copy, paste. To run the command, select and then click execute or press F5. Step 10. Step 10. Sorry. Confirm that the rollback command has rollback the entire transaction, which is in this example the creation of team product underscore TMP table. To perform this, type the following query below the rollback command in the same query pane. To run the query, select it and click execute or press F5. Step 11. Recreate the table team product underscore TMP and download its contents from the team product table in the Adventure Works DW 2016 CT Picture Database. To perform this, type the following query in the query pane that is already open. Copy and paste. To run the query, select it and click execute or press F5. Step 12. Commit the transaction manually to make the changes made in the transaction permanent and the transaction as well. To confirm this, type the following command below the query that you type in step 11. To run the commit command, select and click execute or press F5. Step 13. To confirm whether the changes made in the previous transactions are made permanent, the following query in the same query pane that is open. Paste. To run the query, select it and click execute or press F5. Step 14. To turn off implicit transaction option in the SQL server, type the following query in the same query pane. To run the command, select and click execute or press F5. Next, exercise 2. Creating an explicit transaction on transact. An explicit transaction refers to the method in which the user starts the execution of the transact SQL statements by specifying the begin transaction statement at the start of the transaction, a comma transaction, or rollback transaction at the end of the transaction. When the execution of a transaction is unsuccessful due to errors, then you typically end the transaction with a rollback transaction statement. When the execution of a transaction is successful, you typically end the transaction with a comma transaction statement. We normally use explicit transaction while creating triggers and stored procedures. Step 1. Create a new fact internet sales underscore test table and import data from fact internet sales table on the AdventureWorks DW 2016 CTP3. Then select the data from the newly created fact internet sales underscore test to verify the output. To perform these following queries in the new query pane. Copy and paste. To run the queries, click execute or press F5. Step 3. Create an explicit transaction by explicitly defining the start and the end of the transaction. Type the following explicit transaction that deletes the record with the product K310 from the fact internet sales underscore test table. Notice that the transaction explicitly uses the begin tran statement at the start and the rollback tran statement at the end. This implies that the deletion of the record with the product K310 needs to be rolled back at the end of this transaction. Note, type the given query in the query pane that is already open. Copy. Wait, sir. Wait. Copy and paste. To run the batch, select the entire transaction and click execute or press F5. Step 4. Confirm the deletion of the record with the product K value 310. Type the following query in the query pane that is already open. Copy and paste. To run the query, select it and click execute or press F5. Step 5. Replace the rollback trend command in the transaction with the commit trend command and perform the required delete operation. To perform this, type the following query in the query pane that is already open. Copy and paste. To run the query, select the entire transaction and click execute or press F5. Step 6. Confirm the deletion of the record with the product K310 and the fact internet sales underscore test table. To perform this, type the following query in the query pane that is already open. Copy and paste. To run the query, select it and click execute or press F5. Next, exercise 3. Implementing save points for rolling back transactions. A user can divide a big transaction into different sections and define save points for each section. When a save point is implemented along with rollback, the part of the transaction with save point can be alone. Rollback save points can be used in locations where there are fewer chances of occurrence of errors. Thus, save points can reduce the time taken to complete a transaction by rolling back to the save point instead of rolling back to the beginning of the transaction. In this exercise, we'll learn to implement save points in transact SQL statements and use it with the rollback command to complete the transaction. In this exercise, we'll learn to please refer to your course material or use your preferred search engine to research this topic in more detail. Task 1. Use save points in the transaction. In this task, we will create save point statements in transaction. Step 1. Drop the existing internet sales underscore test table created in the previous exercise. Now create the fact internet sales underscore test table again and import data from the fact internet sales table in the AdventureWorks DW 2016 CTP3 database. To drop the existing table and create a new table, type the following query in the new query pane. Copy and paste. Step 2. To run the query, click execute or press F5. Step 3. Retrieve the records from the fact internet sales underscore test table. To perform this, type the following query below the previous query in the same query pane. To run the query, select it and click execute or press F5. Step 4. Continue this session and delete the records in the fact internet sales underscore test table whose product key is 346. Create a save point to mark the transaction. To perform this, type the following query below the query that you type in step 3 in the same query pane. Copy, paste. To run the query, select and click execute or press F5. Step 5. To confirm that the transaction is successful and the specified rows are deleted in the fact internet sales underscore test table. Type the following query in the same query pane that is already open. Copy and paste. To run the query, select it and click execute or press F5. Step 6. Continue the session and delete the columns in the fact internet sales underscore test table whose product key is 310. Create another save point to mark the section of the transaction that deletes the specified records. Create another save point, type the following query below the current query in the same query pane. Copy, paste. To run the query, select and click execute or press F5. Step 8. Select the records from the fact internet sales underscore test table to verify that the records with the product key 310 are deleted. Then roll back the transaction to the save point tran B. To perform this, type the following batch of the SQL statement in the same query pane. Copy and paste. To run the batch, select and click execute or press F5. Step 9. To verify that the rollback of the transaction within tran B is successful, select that records from the fact return cells underscore test table, then rollback the transaction to the save point tran A. To perform this, type the following batch of SQL statements below the current query in the same query pane. Copy and paste. To run the batch, select and click execute or press F5. Step 10. Confirm that the transactions under save points tran A and tran B are successfully rolled back and the deleted rows are inserted back in the fact return cells underscore test table. To perform this, type the following query below the current query in the same query pane. To run the query, select it and click execute or press F5. Next, click done. Power off the flap SQL01. And then click the exit. That's all, sir, and thank you.